Hello, sisters. Okay. Yet again, I have closed the last live chat and I cannot access it. So if you had something that you said that you were like, you should address this, please say it again. Okay. Um. Also, just like generally, I feel bad. My scheduled streams have gotten all messed up recently because I missed like one day and then they were all off by a day. Um. I will get way more on top of that tonight. I will make sure the schedule for this week is like actually accurate. Um. Also, I'm sorry I didn't have the next stream linked like I usually do, just because there was 23 of you guys there, and now there's 6 of you here, so I messed up. Thank you, Aqua. Also, just like I'm gonna give you guys like a bunch of updates all at once since I'm on talking about this. Uh, oh, you know the thing with my medication? I think today's stream is gonna be like this one is gonna be quite short because now I'm having this thing where I feel like pins and needles and like not not like when your leg falls asleep, not like that. I mean like it actually feels like there's like pins in my skin like everywhere and like I want to like rip my skin off. But it's like I might as well be distracted doing this with you guys, but I don't think I should spend like hours doing it. I think I'll get more tired. So the thing with my medication, I think this week is gonna be pretty bad. Next week is gonna be the worst week. Um so just letting you know. Okay, because some of you were, like, concerned before when I was like, "I'm in a lot of pain, I need to stop for a second." You were like, "What the fuck is going on?" So I'm just letting you know this is what's going on. Um, it's okay. Honestly, I'm so happy I'm finally getting off this medication. I'm so happy I don't fucking care. Like, I'm so happy. I can't even express to you. Um, yeah. Okay, let's talk about the essay. So this essay. Hey, Dragon. No, it's all good. I just want to like let you guys know when you see me like stop for a second and stare off into space and like scratching my skin like nuts, just like this is what's happening. Sour lemon drops. What is that? Oh, yeah, me too. That's what I think it's gonna be like pretty bad this week, and it's gonna be worst of all next week, and then I think I'm gonna feel like a lot fucking better. We'll see. Anyway, so the essay. Also, okay. Hello, Tossstones, Clown World, Aqua, Julia, Kaz, Maple, Grey Witch, Dragon, Kiddigan, Julia. Okay, that's all you, right? Um, yeah. So the essay, corner. Hello, corner. Okay. This essay, I'm gonna just say like generally some things I liked about it, like in terms of like structure and writing style, before I get into like the actual subject and subject matter. Um, I liked how the entire essay was like, this is why someone comes to therapy. This is what we did about it in therapy. This kind of thing. Instead of it just being like, let's talk about this issue for like 12 pages and then we'll have like one paragraph at the end that's like, yep, so pay attention in therapy. I liked how it was like all integrated together. A lot of the essays so far in this book, it's like they're just kind of to these things. And I feel like that's kind of stupid. This one, I think they did a really, Beverly Burch did a really great job with that. Um, let's go to the right thing. Use my yes. Okay. Um, also compared to the last essay, I feel like it's just so much more like coherent and like consummate. Like it's just this essay actually was like, look, this is the problem. I'm gonna explain it to you like in a kind of theoretical way and in a practical way, and it's not just gonna be some postmodern shit where you need to fill in the blanks yourself. That was nice. Um, yeah. Honestly, the whole like Oedipus thing, I had like heard of it before when it comes to lesbians. Like I've heard it mentioned, but I never really like seen a real discussion about it or like took in part in a real discussion about it or anything. So this topic is like pretty new to me. This whole like the mother-daughter bond thing and like how it affects like your future woman to woman relationships. I don't know, very interesting. I did have one criticism of the essay. Let me look again to do with structure rather than the actual subject matter. I just want to look through it one more time and make sure I'm thinking of this right. Okay. So she has this identifying the issues topic where she talks about dependency, power, dependency, nurturance. Then she has development theory women. Then she goes over the same topics again, right? Oh no. Oh no, then it's okay, wait. Understanding psychodynamically. What was the name of this section where she covered the same things 3 times, but from this was identifying the issues, then the psychodynamically. What was the major difference though, really? Was like I think in the first section where she goes over the 3 issues, she really is just kind of explaining like why would power be an issue in a lesbian relationship, and then when it's in the third section in understanding the issue psychodynamically, she explains like why do you have that issue? Why is the issue like ever present or inescapable or like paradoxical to your relationship or something? Um, yes, exactly, Izzy. I do feel also kind of uncomfortable with it. Izzy says, I don't think I've ever heard case studies of lesbian couples therapy laid out like this. It is really interesting, but also kind of uncomfortable. Yes, I felt very called out. What's that meme where it's like, why are you about me? And it's like a bird on Twitter. You know what I mean? I felt like this whole essay was like, why are you talking about? It's like, I don't know. I only had her in a relationship, so it's really easy for me to take like everything that happened in that relationship and like apply all of this to like the entire relationship. But like Clownworld says, I've always been rubbed the wrong way by the whole everyone secretly wants to bang their parents Freud stuff, but aside from that, I enjoyed this essay. Yeah, first of all, I didn't feel I like how she had, unlike a lot of the other essays in this book, kind of feminist perspective on things. And I mean like feminist in a fundamentally like, you know, females are socialized differently and that's effect starts like from right away and you internalize. Like she really took that seriously in the essay, which I very much appreciated. And like Izzy Fox said, I also appreciate the like specific case studies because like that was very interesting to me. And like you said, like you never hear that kind of stuff. I wish this entire book was like that. I wonder if there's like a book about lesbian relationships from the second wave or something. Um, Aqua, I thought lesbianism was bound to be easier than cracking on with men. um, Maple says, same Myron. Obviously, people can get insecurities from their parents, but some people go way too far with their your wife is your mommy stuff. Oh, yeah. Anang says, if you feel called out, it could mean that you're growing as a person. That is what we hope. That is what we all hope. Like, welcome to the channel. Okay. Yeah, I do think it was a little overblown in some sections, but I don't know. I think that the author did a good job getting her point across, even if sometimes it seemed a little extreme. So I appreciate that she was like, "This is what I'm trying to get across," and like, this is like, she was focused. A lot of the essays, some of the essays that we've read, it's like, this is the point, and then it like rambles about random bullshit. At least she was like on point. You know what I mean? Um, Yeah, I know. That's the second wave lesbian relationships were complicated as fuck thing. Yeah. A lot of like there's parts of this book that are clearly written by bisexual women and they're like because they literally are like at some point in the essay like yes, I'm attracted to men and I'm like what? Anyway, and they're like the lesbians like they all think like to have sex like no orgasms and no penetration and like you can't be attracted to somebody based on aesthetics so like you're not allowed to like ever like do anything to like entice your partner and like these long diatribes of like the way that second waivers are like so like militant in their feminism that it like prevents them from like basically having relationships and I was like whoa it makes sense that this is a thing that happened but I was like whoa so anyway I feel like I really don't know much about it and I'm beginning to realize what you're saying Anung is very true um Yes, this blaming the mother thing. Honestly, I don't think I was very aware of that. I'm always very aware of that. Um I'm always very aware of the blaming the mother thing or just blaming women generally. But on a certain level, it's like what she's talking about is your primary earliest woman to woman relationship is it is going to have a profound impact on the rest of your woman to woman relationships for the rest of your life. So, whether that's positive, negative, whatever it is, it's that this is like profoundly impactful for you. And that I appreciated her talking because like I said, I've never really heard about this topic. Um and she did mention some like insecure mothers or narcissistic mothers and whatever. And like again, I don't think she was just being like all mothers suck and that's why lesbians can have relationships. I didn't feel like it was like that. Maybe some of you felt it was that way. But to me it felt more like so this is like here's like because even with Catherine and Paula, she didn't even tell us what the mother did to the one. She just said, her emotional needs were not met by her mother and like she had felt constant rejection from her mother or something. So it was like very unspecific and just kind of like because of that, this was her reaction. So I felt more like she was saying, because the primary original female to female relationship is with your mother, if you're a girl, here's like what a problem could be when you were a child, and this could be the result when you're an adult in your relationship. I think she was just trying to kind of like make her case, not so much be like all mothers suck and that's why lesbians suck at being in relationships or something. Anyway, Tossstone says I get pressure for not having men in my life because I am raising sons. I'm sure you're doing a great job, Tossstones. I have not super developed feelings or analysis or whatever on like all of that stuff, but you seem like a very responsible, empathetic, thoughtful woman. I'm sure you're doing great. Like fuck them. Why can't they leave you the fuck alone? Um Anung says I love that young women are talking more about power dynamics today, race, class, and equality. That was a hot topic back in the day. Hmm. Exactly, dragon. So I have like a extremely, extremely, very, very negative relationship with my mother. And I feel like bad about it as a feminist because like I understand that like, for like a bajillion reasons, this is like a super important thing, your relationship with your mother and stuff. And I've tried to like, you know, extend the olive branch and whatever, and every time it's like she sets me on fire. So I've like stopped. But like, yes, exactly, Dragon. You're like, but what if your mother is shit? Exactly. Um, yeah. Maple says, my mother was shit, but I still recognize my dad was the main reason for it. He treated her like crap, so she treated the kids like crap because she was the one actually caring for us. Yeah. I don't know. It's very complicated. Mabel says too real. I'm in a similar situation with my mom. I actually think I know a lot of re-identified women or detrans women, whatever, who have narcissistic moms like me. Um, and that was part of what she was talking about in the essay was less about like honestly my issues with my mom are like so severe that when I feel mom vibes from a woman, I get like creeped out and like in a panic state and I'm like I need to get away from this lady. Like it's like very bad. I try really, really hard to like have like a feminist and like not project my own personal stuff onto like my feminist feelings and analysis and whatever. Like I try to keep like an open mind and like dissociate from it, so that it's not all about like my feelings, but like what was happening here? Aqua says, if I was a relationship counselor, all my advice would be to do volunteer work, split wood, take up burning, clean your house, eat together, and drink more water together. I'm very forward focused. Oh, like me and my mother. Yeah, I don't know. Um, like I think the next time if I try to see my mother again, I think it needs to be like in a therapist's office because like it's just like screaming and crying. Like we don't even speak. We're just like screaming and crying. Like it's very bad. Um, Oh yeah, but the detrans assisted re-identified thing in narcissistic mothers. So in this, not even about relationships. She was talking about like um even the way she talked about gender identity. I kind of was okay with it. Aside from the actual term gender identity, what she meant was like feeling your sameness as your mother or your differentness from your mother. Really is what she was using the term to mean, I think. Which is like, I mean, yeah, that's what you do when you're like a small child growing up around your parents. You're like, am I more like my mom or my dad? Right? It's like obviously. Um but this thing of like I don't want to be like my mom or I do want to be like my mom or you grow up thinking your mom is like the coolest, then like this has like a profound effect on like your sense of self, right? Becoming yourself after your mother, and then you decide that she is like horrible or something, or like if from a very young age you had to be like psycho and you wanted to be nothing like her because you wanted to like take care of things she doesn't take care of, whatever the things are. Like for me, just like as a person who's talked to a lot of women who've like identified as trans for a long time, a period of time, or had what they would contextualize as gender dysphoria for a long time, I do think the narcissistic mother thing is like super relevant. um and I like the way that she brought it up in this chapter because it wasn't super about like the mother's actions or even the interactions between the mother and the daughter. It was more about the impact on the daughter, which I think was like nice because it wasn't all about demonizing someone. It seemed more productive to me. um Honestly, my relationship with my mom has been like nothing since I came out, and it's not like because it's just like a timing thing. I think it's just like when I came out, like we were in different periods of our life or whatever. um Oh, Kaz, I'm so glad for you that you have an awesome relationship with your mother. I try to like, well, I've always gravitated towards older people. Even when I was like in elementary school, I would always be friends with kids who were like 1 or 2 grades above me. In university too, like in my first year, all my friends were masters. So like now, a lot of my friends, I think I said this in another stream. I have like 2 friends who are like 26 and 27, and the rest of my friends are like in their 40s. And so I try to like have positive relationships with older women to kind of like unlearn whatever internalized misogyny I have towards my mother in some way. I'm not sure, something like that. But, to have like internalized positive feelings towards like myself aging and women aging and like this kind of thing. I'm not sure if I'm articulating myself well, but I don't know. I'm very aware of it. I agree, Maple. I think that's where I'm at right now. I'm not no contact, but I'm like very extremely little contact. Maple says, I don't think you should feel pressured to build or rebuild the connection with a parent if they're beyond hope. Yeah. At this point, I'm waiting for her to extend an olive branch because I've been doing it for like, when did COVID start? I've been doing it for like 3 years now. And like, yeah, it's pretty, yeah, one sided. Who was it, Anung, that says something about lesbians had poor relationships with their mothers but good relationships with their grandmothers? Seems like it skipped a generation. I always thought that. I thought that since I was quite young, actually. Because, like, the whole thing of, like, how grandmothers are supposed to, like, spoil their kids, but then the mother, a lot of the time, is, like, the one who actually puts the foot down because the dad is like too lazy to do that or doesn't want to be the bad guy or whatever the fuck. And so I'm like, so many girls I knew even when I was little, like they saw their moms as like the one who told them like you can't watch any more TV and like you have to eat vegetables, and they saw their grandmother as like the one who like takes them shopping or whatever. Um and that's how it was for me too. But I think like the majority of that is just because it's like your grandmother doesn't have to raise you, and raising you is like a hard thing to do. So of course there's going to be like, you know, anyway. Clown World says the author made a good point on productive and versus unproductive conflict as well. Yes, that was very good to me because again, I don't know. I need to read like a book about lesbian relationships, not instead of like 5 essays about it, or I think there's 4 essays about relationships in this. Um my mom isn't homophobic. She just kind of doesn't give a shit. Um Thank you for the recommendation, Reagan. Okay. I very much agree, Anung. Anung says the mother is the one who is pressured to enforce the patriarchy on the daughter. It appears they do it in their own. Okay. It appears they do it on their own, but the coercion is often hidden. Um, Tossstone says, where'd it go? Here it is. My mother was raised in an orphanage, very damaged, and died young. Poverty is also a huge factor. Yes. Like, not my mother, but my grandmother's generation. They were so poor. Like, okay, my great grandmother got married when she was like 17 or something. She had like a grade 4 education. This was in, I can't do math, the 40s, I want to say. Um, oh no, it can't be that long ago. I should be able to do the math on this. The 60s, because each generation is 20 years apart. Yeah. Anyway, she got married young to some guy. She only spoke French. He moved her out to the middle of nowhere, Ontario, so she couldn't communicate with anyone. She didn't have an education. She didn't have a job. Started popping out babies because they're Catholics. He was like a lumberjack. So that she lived like in a trailer in middle of nowhere. At like by the age of like 21, she had like 3 babies with her in this trailer in the middle of nowhere. She has stories about like there was no food, so I would go and pick berries and like make baby food out of the berries for the babies, and like there was like bears, so I had like the shotgun there. Like when like the bears would come because the babies are crying, so I had to like stand outside with the shotgun. Like at 21 years old, like isolated. Anyway, a bunch of her kids, she had like 9 kids, and then her husband fucked off. So a bunch of her kids grew up in convents. So a bunch of my great aunts grew up in convents. Yeah, like really up north. Well, within the province of Ontario, north. If you are from like the north of Canada, you'll think that's basically the city, but like it's not. Anyway, um, yeah. So, but like poverty is a huge part of it, and you see the way the women act, like with regard to patriarchy because they grew up in convents, like with the patriarchal power structures, right? Like, yeah, yeah. Nung says, if a woman is acting in an abusive way in an indigenous community, all someone has to say is boarding school and all is understood. Like, I don't know what my mom's trauma is from her childhood, but Now that I'm older and I look back at the way she behaves, clearly she has quite a bit of trauma from her childhood, because who the fuck behaves like that? And I think a lot of it was like her trying to protect me from being put through the same shit that she was put through. But like the result of that was like me being scared of my body, me being scared of like ever having any sexual relationship ever, like me being scared of like everything and like avoiding everything. And it actually made me like unprepared to deal with anything, which is like why I went looking for like the lib fem woke shit. Cause I was like, I have all these like blanks with like what I'm supposed to know and what I'm supposed to think and how I'm supposed to feel. Like I don't have any like frame of reference for that stuff. So I went off looking for like women to give me advice on that stuff. Well, like generally, I was like, I need to know more about these topics. But it's like, I don't know. I recognize that being a mother is hard. I'm not trying to like demonize all mothers or whatever. But I'm just like, obviously, like when we talk about generational stuff, it's like I don't know. Was she hardcore purity politics, like don't show skin? I think she was like scared of us getting sexually abused. So I honestly, it's so strange to me because like I, by the time I like understood myself to be dysphoric, like as that's the term I applied to myself, I was like 13. And I look back at like the way my mother treated me as a kid, and I'm like, how much of that was like socialized into me? Because like for example, my mom has like really, 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 really serious arachnophobia, like a breakdown level of arachnophobia. Okay, and she like programmed me and my sister to have that because like how could she not? Like if we were alone with my mom all the fucking time, my dad was always away on work like for months at a time. If we were alone with my mom all the time, and she flips her shit and like has a breakdown every time she sees a spider, how could she not ingrain that into us, right? After like years and years of that, I've like overcome it quite a bit, but I'm just saying. So when I compare that to like, never show any skin, always be like hyper aware, like we weren't even supposed to tell my but we were supposed to hide from my dad when we were menstruating when we were little. And I was like, I didn't understand why. But now that I look back, I'm like, my mom must have thought this could be like a signal to any man, that we are like ready to be sexually abused or something. I think that's what it must have been in her mind. Like, so when I look back at like all that stuff and I compare it to like the very mild arachnophobia that I now have, I'm like, well, that must have played a factor into like my dysphoria or something, right? Like, how could it not? And like, I didn't know like what a vagina was till I was 12. I didn't know what rape was until I was like probably 12 or 13. But like, even not knowing what that was, there was such a like fear around all that stuff all the time when I was a kid. Like, even like an unspoken, like, this is, you need to act this way for this, like, as a safety thing, but not explaining what the like threat is. That like, I don't know. I just feel like I was like almost like socialized into it. But it's like, is my experience that different from other girls' experiences? Obviously not. Like, I've talked to women. Okay, dude, but why are you putting it on my fucking live chat? I've talked to women. Also, hello, bird killed me. I've talked to women who like, they had like virginity screenings when they were like little, like 4 years old, 6 years old, right? By their mothers. Or like stuff like that. And I'm like, so I know my experience is not like some crazy over the top bad thing compared to other women's experiences. And so when I think about myself and how that like ingrained in me dysphoria, whatever that means, like what I mean is like like a huge discomfort with my body, like a huge fear and horror of my body and my sexuality and like anything to do with femaleness. I'm just like, how can other women not get the same thing from their okay, anyway, I feel like I'm like dissembling. Okay, let's go back to the live chat. Okay. You didn't have to delete your message. It's okay. um, Mabel says like she didn't want males to know that you were fertile. Yeah. Um, yeah. Anang says Ojibwe fear of snakes is said to be genetic. Very interesting. Um, Anung says Lib Fem is just a Trojan horse of male sexual politics, bait and switch. They suck you in with promises of sexual liberation and hit you with the different forms of oppression. Yep, very, very much agree. Mm. Spider censorship. um, okay. Okay. So I'm having like a lot of temperature fluctuations. Like I'm like sweating and then I'm like shivering and freezing with goosebumps, like back and forth every couple minutes. It's a very strange feeling. I can't wait till these meds are out of my body. Okay. So I'm not going I think I'm gonna stop going through every essay like page by page because it just takes so long. Um like do people really want do women really want like a 2-hour stream of this? Yeah. Yes, I agree, Anang. Anang says, I think all little girls have an instinctive fear of male strangers. We don't have the language and the anatomical knowledge, but we know what feeling like prey feels like from a young age. I very much agree. Thanks, Myra. Okay. All right. I don't know. Okay, I'm glad that I read this essay because, like I said, I don't know much about this topic. But like, just at first blush, my first impression after reading this one essay is that like I I don't get the like erotic aspect of like the Oedipus thing. Like I get it that like psychologically, emotionally, like this whole thing of like, your emotionally needs were not provided for. So now you enter into a very intimate relationship with a woman and you have like a fear and an issue with your emotional needs being provided for. For me, like psychologically and emotionally, this makes sense. But when they talk about it, like it's very brief, but not they, she, Beverly Burch, she sometimes mentions it being like an erotic trigger or something. And I don't get that at all. Like, given I don't know much about like childhood, like physiological sensational development or whatever the fuck. I don't know much about babies, but I just don't get it and that creeps me out and it's weird. Makes me uncomfortable. Whoever was saying that makes you uncomfortable before, that is what makes me uncomfortable about this essay. Um yeah, I'm gonna wrap up pretty like definitely within the next 30 minutes. Yeah. But I don't know, the way she brings up the Oedipus complex in here, it's not like a sexual fixation or something, the way that it's brought up with men. So at least she was like, women are different. She kept saying women are different. I was like, yes, I agree. We are not the like compared to the last essay, for those of you who weren't here in the last essay, I'm like, well, she was bisexual. So what did we expect? But like, some of these psychotherapists seem to tell on themselves. Very, very true. Word killed me. But in the last essay, there was like multiple sections where the author directly conflated male and female sexuality and was like, um, "Well, Mabel, you should come with us to MFR then, so you can wrangle the snakes for all of us, since we're all going to be there." Well, not all, a few. Anyway, um, oh yeah, she was like, they did like a study where they showed images of something that like is sexually arousing and they put like instruments to measure that. I forget what the name of those things are, but you know what I'm talking about. And for the men, they would see the picture and the machine would register arousal and they would say I'm aroused. The women, they would see the picture, the machine would register arousal, the woman would say, I'm not aroused. And I was like, why are you directly conflating them? Like the machine measurements are not even comparable because you're measuring two different things. So like first of all, this is the first like the very basic study makes no sense. Anyway, I was just like, there's so many parts of this book where they're directly conflating this shit, and I'm just glad this author didn't do that shit. Clown World, are you gonna be there? I am almost certainly going to MFR this summer. Like I am, if I have to fucking fly, I'm going. Although I really hope I don't have to fly because I'm supposed to bring tents and sleeping bags for other women who are flying. So, but yeah, I'm definitely going this summer. So what I think I'll do is I'll like organize a meetup on like the first morning or whatever the fuck when it starts. And then that way, if we do like a meetup and we're like friends, we can like hang out for like the 3 days or whatever. Okay. All right. Something that really spoke to me in this essay. Here, let's see if I can find. I'm just gonna read this whole paragraph because I found it. Maple, like TBH, do like a GoFundMe and I'll sell it. Like I'll promote the GoFundMe. Like if you want to come, like dude, let's go. Let's do it. We'll make it happen. Um I think they also will do sliding scale for the ticket prices. Um and depending on where you are, you can probably carpool with someone at least part of the way. Like there's ways to do that shit if you really want to. Um like I know a bunch of the women who come and go from there like hitchhike the whole way, and I'm like, you just need to be organized to know which women are going to give you rides. This is what I'm saying because I am driving. I will just hijack all of my family's camping gear. I'm already bringing camping gear for one other woman who's flying in and myself. I can bring camping gear for another woman. Like email me. Okay, whatever. Cuz like if you're flying from the middle of nowhere or whatever, far away, just bring like your clothes and I'll bring you like a sleeping bag and a tent and like I was going to bring like, granola bars and shit from Costco and then, you don't need to bring crap with you. Okay. I'm going to read this paragraph because I felt it was like extremely poignant. Power. Many lesbians are acutely attuned to inequalities in power. Some of the reasons for this attunement are easily deduced. Lesbians are often feminists and concerned with women's unequal access to power. But like I had like a feminist instinct from a very young age because I remember like being in church when I was like 5 and being like, I don't understand why the women like marry the men. Isn't that like a bad deal? People were like, the fuck. Okay. Um Many lesbians recall an early awareness of women's limitations in heterosexual relationships. Some remember making conscious choices against marriage and traditional relationships with men, even if not specifically identifying themselves as lesbians. This early determination not to be subjected to an inferior role is somewhat thwarted, however, by the position of lesbian in the culture. Lesbians lose social and political power through lack of affiliation with men and male power. They have chosen other women, that is, devalued members of society, as partners. They are labeled deviant. Their self determination is often frustrated in painful ways. Although lesbians sometimes feel more powerful and independent in relationships than heterosexual women do, they lose the narrow access that heterosexual women retain to power in the world. Aqua, every time I look up and you write something, it's so funny. Um, bring citronella for the state bird. Interesting. Um, yes, church is where you learn to go. WTF is this shit? I think a lot of. I was actually talking to. Who the fuck was I talking to? Or was this on a live stream? No, I think I was talking to Rachel. But we were like, I think growing up like more religious than not religious like brings you to feminism faster or gives you like a more solid grounding in your feminism because you have like a more immediately like a more intimate understanding of like what the patriarchy actually is. Anyway. Honestly, I like lizards. I went to Disney World when I was little, and there's like a bajillion geckos everywhere, and I thought that was so cool. Cause obviously in Canada we don't have geckos everywhere, so I just thought that was like the coolest shit ever. Um, Aqua says, "I think church was the first place I remember being so angry." Yeah. So, but this like immediate like lesbians are acutely attuned to inequalities in power. Like, I thought that was like a weird me thing. Is that a thing like a lot of lesbians feel? Because in my video, why why so many lesbians think that they're like gay trans men. I was like, I mentioned that. I was like, I was so uncomfortable with like inequality in power. So I thought if I'm a man to be in like an equal relationship, I need to be in a relationship with a man. Like this wasn't like the reason I thought I was a gay man, but it was like, a huge factor was that I was like, I need to be in an equal power relationship. And like that must be accomplished by whatever means necessary because it's only from there that I can feel any comfort or like safety or affection in a relationship as if we are like on equal footing. So that was so important to me. And I'm not in that video, I was like, I think this is important to a lot of other lesbians, but like I wasn't sure. Now she's mentioning that this here in the 80s. Is this like a common, well-known thing that lesbians are like this when they're little kids? Um anyway. Grey Witch is like, haha, God made man and then rib baby. Christianity can be crazy. Uh, at least I didn't go to Catholic church when I was a little kid. I went to Catholic church later when I was in high school. And like, oh my god. Like with the fucking long, like 3-hour masses, and you have to like kneel and stand and like sit still and all this shit. At least like when I was little, I would go to Mennonite church sometimes when I was like visiting my family, but most of the time we went to like this non-denominational church and you were like you could sing and like the Sunday school was like very chill. Like you could like come and go from like the main room to the Sunday school room if you wanted, if you got like bored or something. Um, but yeah, I know what you're talking and also, like, yeah, the dressing up thing. When I was little, my mom always would wanted to put me in dresses for church, and I was like, "This is obviously bullshit, like, I'm not doing that." Yeah. Dragon says I mean, Kaz says, "Wait, you're also named Dragon, Kaz the Fluff Dragon." There's, like, 4 dragons who come to my streams. Um, Kaz says, "I'm convinced Eve was made first and men got pissy about it." I support this version of events. Wait, Clown World, where the fuck are you from? Are you Slovenia? I actually became friends with this girl who was Armenian, who went to like an Armenian Orthodox church, which like honestly to me it's like pretty indistinguishable from like regular Catholicism. It's just like some extra steps in there. Um oh, you're half Serbian. Okay. I I forgot how to say hello in Serbian. No, but yeah, and so I volunteered playing music at her church, and you know how like you need well, I don't know if you know, but like in Canada, you need like volunteer hours to graduate high school. I think you need 20 volunteer hours to graduate high school or 40 volunteer hours or something. But I was getting my volunteer hours by playing at her church. But it was like we would play like when people were walking in to sit down, and then they would be like, "Go sit," and then we would sit there for the 3-hour mass in Armenian or Latin. But either way, I didn't understand any of it. And it's not like you can be on your phone like it's a church service. And then we would like play after as the people left the and so like for all of that I got like 1 hour of community service for doing like being in this church for like 4.5 hours or something. Familiar with the myth of Lilith, Adam's first wife? I am not. I mean, I've obviously heard the term Lilith and I've watched Supernatural. But Shout out if you watched Supernatural when you were a teenager. I tried to watch the last season when it came out like 2 years ago or whatever, and it was like garbage. I watched like the last episode of the show because I had watched like, 12 seasons of this garbage anyway. But I'm not super familiar with the original myth. I want to look it up actually. Um, Anung says there was a lot of talk about power imbalance in the 70s and 80s. By the 90s, the BDSM community started spreading gay male narratives about quote unquote coming to power and how quote unquote liberating sexualized power can be. Oh my god. Anung, you should thank the goddess or whoever that you were not here for the last essay, because the whole last essay was about how like the entire last essay, I can sum it up like this. The author is obsessed with like the number of instances in which there is sexual activity in a relationship. And she was like, if you look at it, in the long period, lesbians are not having enough sex, and gay men are having the most sex. So the lesbians should imitate all the gay men's behavior to be having more sex because more sex is good. And I was like, my roommate just made eye contact with me. She's like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" But it's like the stupidest essay I've ever read, and it was like 50 pages. Oh my god, it was so painful. But Anung, I totally feel you, and I'm so glad you saved yourself from that bullshit. I wish I could tell ahead of time which essays are garbage to like warn you guys not to waste your time listening to. Um, Clarold, you were obsessed with Supernatural. Did you ship Cass and Dean? Oh my god, no. But you know who are the best characters in Supernatural? Is Felicity Day. The lesbians. Like in season 9 or whatever, with the lesbians. You know what I'm talking? Well, the one lesbian character. But she does have like the love interest. Did she get with Alice? No, from Dorothy from Dorothy from Wizard of Oz. Don't they run off together in like some alternate universe at the end? I support that. Um I don't recognize anything after season 5 as canon. Yes, because it's all garbage. Even like season 3 or 4, no. Season 4 is when it really starts to be quite bad. But I mean, I guess compared to the end, it's like 90% good because the end is like minus 100% bad. Um, so everyone generally doesn't like things without legs. Doesn't it have like 50 seasons? I think it has 14 seasons, and not in a good way like Grey's Anatomy, like in a bad way. Like how they should have murdered The Flash like 3 seasons in, but they waited like 6 seasons to cancel that show and it was garbage. Like that way. That's how Supernatural was. Okay. The distinction between actual inequalities and the felt experiences of powerlessness is a subjective one. Some couples handle differences or inequalities without great difficulty, others are preoccupied with them. Ability to tolerate and work with differences is essential to a relationship survival. The idea that any difference in power is damaging is not borne out by experience. The cats are fighting. Excuse me. Okay, there you go. Okay. Oh, hey, Matt Adam. Charlie was the lesbian. Dorothy was only in one episode. I think it was the last episode that Charlie shows up in. Because you know how Charlie becomes like this Indiana Jones-esque type character? I don't even remember what it is, but she's like dimension hopping or something to like track down monsters or something like that. And then at one point, I think it's like in season 12 or 13. It's not like the last season, or I think it's not even the second. There's one point where Charlie shows up and something happens where they do one of those like world meshing episodes, and it like the characters from the Wizard of Oz are like real people or something. I don't even remember, but I remember her like going into like the world, the alternate reality of Wizard of Oz, like to live happily ever after with Dorothy or something. I'm pretty sure. Maybe I'm wrong, but it felt nice, but I was kind of like, this is such a good character. Why is she only in like 6 episodes in the whole fucking show? Anyway. Okay. Well, exactly Inung. Exactly Inung. Anung says lesbians had lots and lots of sex back in the day. I don't know who's floating the narrative that we didn't. All my friends was changing partner like underwear until we. Yeah. Um. That is extremely cool. Tuatara in New Zealand has reptile and mammalian DNA. What? So it's like a platypus or something. It's like some bizarre, creepy crossovers. I do not have more than one cat. My roommate has a cat. The other cat's name is Squeaky. I think she's in one or two episodes where she sits like on the bed right there. Um, legless foaming. um, yeah. Isn't the Blood Vampire Queen from True Blood based on Lilith? Yes. Who's that? The Vampire Queen of Louisiana, right? She's very Lilith-esque. But my knowledge of Lilith, like the archetype, is from, like, I guess what I've like secondhand. It's not from the original myth. So, but yeah. Okay. But yeah, I like this thing of like felt. Like they're basically like the difference between feelings and reality in like relationships generally. She brings it up specifically here in terms of like power differences, but and also how, you know, I don't know. I have some friends who are in relationships where like very clearly like one of them makes like 90% of the money, or like one of them has like way more life experience or something like that, where it's like very clear that there's like a power differentiation, and they're like okay with that, and they're just like it's fine. And I'm not sure, but I feel like I could develop in that way to be more okay with like power differences. And I like how she brought up that like there's a difference between like feeling like there's a big difference and the actual reality of the big difference. Or even if there is a reality in the difference, like what does that actually mean in terms of relationship? Like is it necessarily like a negative thing all the time? I don't know. I just like how she brought that up. It felt like in a very non-threatening way. In general, I felt this essay was good at that, bringing up like sensitive stuff in a very non-threatening way. I feel like she would be a good therapist. I don't know where she is, what she's doing now. She's probably retired, but based on this essay, I think this is probably the first essay in the book where I'm like, I want this woman to be my therapist. um, Squeaky is a special guest star like Lisa Kudrow. Um, I don't have any tattoos. I always want to get some, and then I like can't rationalize spending money on it. Um, but Kaz, it does make sense because you're considering women to be people. Kaz said, "I have a hard time believing a loving God would be like, you're not allowing your husband to oppress you, so you go in the no box." But that's because if you don't consider women to be people, then God is a loving God because he loves the people, the men. There you go. Oh, yeah, Clown World. I listen all the time. When I'm driving. Yeah. Okay. Don't tell me, Matt. Yeah, drive safe. Julia says drive safe. I also say drive safe, Myron. Okay. Um. Oh, this paragraph, it was very powerful to me. A woman who fears or even hates her own womanness will project this gynophobia onto her lover and feel further devalued herself by dependency on her. I'm gonna read that again. Okay. A woman who fears or even hates her own womanness will project this gynophobia onto her lover and feel even further devalued herself by dependency on her. She will probably maintain a safe distance from her and these feelings. Thus, her own need for dependency will be denied. She'll be psychologically isolated, even within a relationship. Oh, okay. Bye, Aqua. Thanks for hanging out. Um, Kiara says sounds like my ex, honestly. Yo, that is what I thought when I read this part of the essay. But then I was like, also while I was reading the essay, I kept like thinking a lot of these things about my ex, but then I was like, no, 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 stop. I focus so much on my ex that I'm like, what did I do? Like, what does this say about me? How can this be applied to me? Is there a way in which this concept relates to my behavior? Like I was trying to, um, because I think what she's kind of getting at is that women are supposed to be dependent, right? They're not supposed to be independent. And so by allowing your partner to be dependent on you, you are recognizing, because you're both women, that you should also be able to do this, or should do this, or that you want to do this, and that's threatening to you because you're so creeped out by being a woman or so grossed out by being a female. I don't know. I think that does apply to me. I'm not sure to what extent, but it does. Yeah. Also, I don't know why I'm so overlit today. I literally covered one of my lamps. I'm still wildly overlit. Wow, I feel super freaking overexposed now. Let's try moving something. That's better, isn't it? All right. Feels much more intimate now, doesn't it? Okay. Okay, but this is definitely not great for reading because the lighting on the book is quite bad. All right. Okay, we're approaching the 1 hour, so romantic vibes. You should like have like a candle in a row. Like a date night with Benji. Okay. Okay. And read another thing. Conflict over nurturing manifests itself in many ways: a refusal to nurture, a refusal to be nurtured, a demand for constant attention, an insistence on giving more than is wanted, a sense of betrayal at having to ask or specify what one needs. These problems can express conflicts over autonomy versus dependence and may reflect early narcissistic wounds. However, this issue is related specifically to gender also. Just this, okay, refusal to nurture. So I'm thinking of those lesbians who are like, I'm a tough guy, so I can't do anything nice. And I'm like, but the soft, cuddly butches are the best ones, obviously. I mean, that's like obviously like my opinion. Okay. A refusal to be nurtured. I think I'm pretty bad at that. I feel called out by that. A demand for constant attention. I think we all know women like this in relationships. An insistence on giving more than is wanted. That is definitely me. I'm like, don't nurture me at all. It's my job 100%. Stay the fuck away from that. A sense of betrayal at having to ask or specify what one wants. That was my ex. I remember having a lot of conversations about that, being like, tell me what to give you so I can give it to you. And her being like, but you should know. And me being like, but how? I mean, obviously I've diluted like a lot of it, but that's, oops. This specifically I felt very called out by. I also think it applies to like a lot of lesbian relationships. Okay. So it's something else that she talks about when she talks about the development, right? She's like, when you're because she keeps drawing it all back to the mother-daughter relationship. Um, no, I mean Maple within I think within reason. This is I think one of the Maple says, "Okay, but sometimes the other person should know, right? Or is that just me?" No, I think within reason though. Like things that are like habits or whatever, things that are like constants that are known. That's one thing. But is another thing like, to actually read someone's mind. And I think this comes back to what she was talking about before, like the difference between what you perceive and what is the reality. So like you perceive the other person is not paying attention. Maybe the reality is you're not giving them enough information and they are paying attention. Or you perceive the other person isn't paying attention. They are paying attention, but they're not meeting your needs because they feel that will like put them in like an inferior position or they have issues with like nurturing or whatever the fuck the author is talking about. So I do think it's Maple. There is like a balance to it, yes. Um Jade says just thought I should be able to read her mind, LMAO. Well, I think that's the thing too, is like I don't know what you guys think, and like I said, date night where we unpack our trauma sounds gay, I mean. For real, is he? Um uh Right, okay, so I think at the beginning of a lot of lesbian relationships, like with the whole U-Haul thing, we like jump into it like really deep, really fast, right? And I think this forms like a very deep bond very quickly. And I mean, at least with my ex, at the beginning, I literally felt like we could read each other's minds, like literally. I was like, we know everything about each other. Like we don't know like everything about our past, but what she's feeling now, what she's thinking now, I know that. And so like when it got out of like the U-Haul stage, what was the word that author used like two essays ago? Pre prescient termescence. I don't know. Whatever. Once you get out of that, then you are like, oh no, I can't read her mind. Something is wrong. But I'm like, I don't think you could actually read her mind at the beginning. I think it gives you like a false sense of the relationship or the other person or something. Limerence. Thank you, Maple. Tumescence. um, but yeah. So I don't know if that's like a lesbian thing, but I associate it with the whole like you hauling thing. So I feel like it's a lesbian thing. Um, but I think that's also just like a relationship thing, not even like with lesbians. Is like once you leave the honeymoon stage, when shit gets real, you have to like evolve and adapt with that. Um, Anung says struggle is growth. That's okay. Thank you. I'm just gonna close the door 1 second. I thought that was interesting when they brought not when she Beverly Burch brought up that women treat their female babies differently than they treat their male babies. And it makes sense, right? Because it's like they're projecting themselves into the female babies. Like, like I have self control, you should have self control. Like, I know how to keep shit to myself, you should keep shit to yourself. I know how to comply, you need to learn how to comply. Um, like, because she's identifying with the femaleness of the baby. Like, she's like, we are the same in that aspect. So, like, I'm going to treat her the same as I would treat myself in some unconscious level. I just thought that was interesting. And I wonder how many I wonder how it feels as a feminist, like, to catch yourself doing that, um, or how it feels as if you become a feminist later to look back on the way you treated your children and realize, like, it must be quite, upsetting or something, like, I don't know. I would like to know more about that. Um, like you like my shirt? Only it's for like some Costco brand, but thank you. I don't know what it is about putting a couple of buttons on a shirt, but it looks so good. Oh, thank you. I think the same. I have some of like these like thermal, like the ones who are like this, a little triangle at the top, and I'm like the ones with the buttons look so much better, and I don't know why. It's like still it looks very like basic, right? Um, okay. So a lot of this essay has to do with feeling insecure about being around being in an intimate relationship with someone who has more power with you at certain times, in certain cases, right? And about being insecure about being nurtured because that makes you feel powerless or vulnerable or something. And I think it's almost like the thesis of this essay, in a way, is like you be okay with some things that make you uncomfortable and like ask yourself, why does it make you uncomfortable? Why does it make you uncomfortable to be nurtured? Why does it make you uncomfortable to be like a little bit of a disadvantage with someone you trust or whatever, you know? Um, yeah, to kind of like learn about yourself outside your comfort zone, confront your issues a bit. Maybe that's so obvious it wasn't worth saying, but mom is a second wave feminist. She can't even begin to address the stuff she put her kids through. Bird killed me says, what does she mean by nurtured? I'm pretty sure she just means like for someone to like emotionally pay attention to you and like give you what you need emotionally. Um, Anung says, girls are taught not to expect anything, boys are taught to expect everything. Yeah, so like I think because the girls are taught to expect nothing when they receive something, it's like the fuck's going on here? It's like suspicious, right? Maple says, for like a mild example, she bought me and my sister tons of Barbies. She claimed it was because you two just loved them instead of admitting she betrayed her values. Matt Adam, your tattoos sound rad. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna go through these questions that she's like, as a therapist, these are the things to talk about in therapy or be considered by the therapist. Mm. Okay. How real is the inequality of power and on what is it based? No, it's okay. You guys can always be off topic. I like when you guys are like having your own, stuff to talk about, your own like with little relationships with each other. There's nothing to do with the stream. It's nice. Okay. Do the women experience each other as adversaries or do they actually undermine each other? Cause like, oh, okay, night, Julia. No, no, it's all good, guys. Who is the intrapsychic adversary? Are the power struggles valuable and constructive, or are they destructive? Some power struggles are a way for individuals to define themselves more fully in a relationship, whereas others are perpetual, obsessive, and futile. Yeah, when I read that and I look back at my last relationship, like, yeah, the futile thing started like there was like at least a year where that was happening, and I should have just accepted it instead of being like, no, but we can like fix it and like whatever. I don't know. The question for the client is, do I need to hold on in the struggle or do I need to get over it? Um, I'm very stubborn. I think probably I need to learn how to get over, or, in future relationships, I will probably have to confront this issue. Some battles have an imperative quality, signaling that they are serving another psychological function. Other fights, so like those are like necessary because it's to do with like the status of the relationship, right? Other fights are about defining territory and establishing mutual autonomy. Two women who are each willful, self-determined, and independent, for example, will likely have to go through some battles with each other. Yeah. Yeah, when she talks about the Alicia thing, where like Alicia's emotional needs were not being met, she wasn't being nurtured by her mother, so she had to be independent. She couldn't depend on her mother, right? And so she saw her mother as like this weak woman. She was like disgusted with her that her mother was so needy and needed so much while she was independent even as a child. And that is like very relatable to me. Um if I view myself as demanding, I definitely view myself as being like my mother. And if I view myself as being like rude or mean, I view myself as being like my mother. Like I associate those characteristics with my mother specifically. And so if I see them in myself, I specifically associate them with me being like my mother. Um, and obviously this is not healthy, right? Because obviously this is like a necessary part of a relationship. Um, I'll hug you one day, Anung, in the summer when I come to Michigan. um, like when I come to MFR, it's like pretty close. Well, I mean, relatively compared to where I live, it's pretty close to you. We'll make it happen. Like I remember even when it came to like my trans identity, I remember being like thinking of myself and being like, "You're weak and useless and stupid," and like that's horrible and pathetic. So you need to like become a better person. And I remember at times like viewing my mother in that exact way, and I'm like, how much overlap was there between what I viewed in my mother and what I viewed in myself? Was it like all the same thing, or was it two different things? You know? Jade says, I wonder how I would have turned out if my mother was a feminist during that time. Instead, she raised me to be a good Catholic girl. That was futile. Yeah. Um, my mom is like vaguely feminist these days. I mean, I don't think she's like a rad femme or anything by any means, but like one of the not streaming discussions I had with her like 2 years ago, she was like telling me about she watched some documentaries about like Gloria Steinem, Angela Davis, and someone else, and how she's like, like this is like the origin of this thing and that thing, and I was like, yeah, like that's cool. I don't know. And I kind of thought it'd be something we could like talk about together, but then I don't know. She's like, I just can't get along with her enough to have any real conversations with her. Um, This is true, Anung. This is a very constructive way of looking at it. Anung says, I don't think any of my bad relationships were futile. I learned a lot from them. It taught me what I didn't want and what I would not accept. Yeah. I mean, I'm at the end of my relationship, I thought, shit, so now I have all these bad habits. Like we were doing these like negative things with each other for like months, right? And I'm like, one of my primary like thoughts when I left the relationship was like, am I going to carry these negative habits into my next relationship? And I saw like, so it was like a very negative thing, like looking at my future based on my last. But as time has gone on, it's like actually, oh, it's like 2 weeks until a year since my breakup. Um, as time has gone on, I'm like, no, you know what? I'm like you were saying, Anung. I'm like, why did this happen this way? Because I didn't have boundaries. Like, why did this happen this way? Because she couldn't communicate her needs to me. Like, and it's exactly what you're saying. Like, now, like, I have more of a, perspective on it. I'm like, actually, no, it taught me the things that I do want, the things that, I don't want, um, the things I'm okay with, the things I shouldn't be okay with. Yeah, I think it's taught me a lot. I think I just needed, like, space, really. Like, while I was in the relationship, I didn't feel like I learned much because I was, like, very caught up in what was going on, and even the time after, it was like, well, like, heartbroken and whatever the fuck. So, yeah, but it's been the relationship plus time to process it that's, I think, has been, like, really taught me a lot. Yeah, dragon, we'll have another party. We'll invite other women next time. Okay. This paragraph I found so interesting. Okay, listen to this. Women's conflicts about nurturance and identification as female show most glaringly in the preoccupation with thinness and restrained eating that most adolescent and young women have. An obsession with food, on one hand, and with trying to be thin on the other, reflects an impossible, contradictory attempt to nurture oneself while denying the body. The devaluation of women and the fact that women do essentially all the early parenting become so deeply entangled here that they are inseparable. I thought that was so fucking interesting. Women are socialized not only to be like self-sacrificing, right? So like starvation for the purpose of like appearance, but also to be nurturing, taking care of others. And like you have to take care of yourself and be like self-sufficient to some extent to take care of others. So like they're like contradictory socializations. Very, very interesting. Um Kaz says my shit relationship helped me point out to my friends where their boyfriends were mistreating them. Yeah. Um it's sad because I think this is a very common thing for lesbians that like you don't really have a dating life, but all your straight friends do. And so you are like constantly like whatever that word is. You're constantly like their springboard for questions. I don't know, that's not the right word, but you know what I'm trying to say. And so I spent so much time talking with all my straight friends about like why their boyfriend is like not communicating well, why their boyfriend's expectations are unreasonable, like all this kind of shit. But like it all was pointless. When I got into my own relationship, I couldn't see any of that stuff clearly anymore. Um I think a big part of that though was like one of the issues I had and this has nothing to do with who my ex was. I think it was just like me being in a relationship. One of the issues I had was I didn't know where to draw the line of like, I'm struggling with this thing with my girlfriend, so I'm going to tell my friends about it and like get some kind of like feedback or support. And am I like shit talking and gossiping about my girlfriend and like, breaking her trust? Like to me, it was very hard to find the line between that. And so I think I really overcompensated and I was like very, very isolated when I was dating because I felt like if I was telling my other friends like what was really going on, that I was like somehow betraying her privacy. But I think that was like a very bad thing for the relationship, honestly. We both kind of did that. So yeah, I don't know. I think or I hope in the future, in my future relationships, that I'll be able to like have more of like an outside perspective so that I don't get so like caught up in it and I can't see what's going on. You know what I mean? Grey Witch says, for me, a big part of any gender confusion, was feeling isolated from other lesbians. The independent mindset sometimes leads to, quote, "This is my problem, not a systemic one," end quote. Yeah, I very much agree. That's how I felt when I was going through it, and it's like, you know those buttons that were like, "You can be a lesbian," or like, "Anyone can be a lesbian?" It wasn't until, like, a few weeks ago that I always thought of those as like, well, that's all about political lesbian stuff, right? And it's like this kind of thing. It's like that, like, you're not alone. Like, anybody can be in the same position that you're in right now. This kind of message. I mean, obviously, it's not specific, but this message of like, you're not alone. Anybody can be in the position that you're in. There are women in the position that you're in. Like, I wish I had had that message in some way, you know? Oh, I'm glad you're done driving so that you can talk to us and not die. That's nice. Um, Matt Adams says, I've always accepted my girlfriends will talk to their friends about us and vice versa. Yeah. Um, I mean, to some extent, obviously, but I still wasn't sure where the line should be about that kind of stuff. Um, Dragon's like, so we have to drive to another town to talk about our relationship problems. Um, Kaz says, on top of not wanting to betray privacy, you don't want people to think your partner is a horrible person, even when they might be. You don't want people to think your relationship isn't healthy. Yes, yes. It was confusing to me because I'm like, am I actually describing what's happening in the relationship right now, or am I describing how I feel about what's happening in the relationship right now? Because if that's what I do to my friend, then my friend will just be like, well, obviously, you know, she's being an asshole, right? But it's like, am I giving her the real information on which to like base that, or is it just like because of what I'm feeling right now, she's gonna say that, you know? Um, a bird killed me says, I totally get that, Benji. My girlfriend told me I can always talk about her to people because she's part of my life and I'm allowed to talk about my life however I want. That's healthy. Um, like I think part of it for sure was like, you know, the way my ex acted about that kind of a thing. But corner, no offense, but that seems a little bit unhealthy. Shouldn't you have some friends? Like even one? That's the thing too, Matt Adams. Matt Adams says I've always had a bit of a distance between my friends who I work out stuff with and my girlfriends. Um, because I have like a very small pool of friends. They're like very important to me. They're all the people that I would like introduce my girlfriend with and spend time with my girlfriend. That was another problem, is like all of our friend groups were like completely overlapped. There was no like distinction. So, at least from my side, there was no distinction between my friends and her friends because she knew all the people I knew. So it didn't feel like I had like my own people. And then I don't know. But yeah, that's something else to think about, another aspect of it. Yes, and no. Now I get it, but I think that there's like so little awareness of like lesbian history and lesbian culture and like, you know, like the whole like polylesbians are evil and they're everywhere. This thing is like, I feel like it's become quite big recently, and I'm like, but are they evil and are they everywhere? I don't think so. They're not really like I prolific at this point, I don't think. But it's become, I think, like overshadowing like the consciousness of like the current feminists when they hear this. Anung says, anyone can be a lesbian was meant to mean something very different. It just meant any woman, young, old, black, white, rich, poor, femme, could be a lesbian. Not that everyone should try it. Yeah. Yeah, everyone come to MFR. I'll be there. A bunch of you will be there. Um, Getter is like Twitter, but started by some Trumpers. So it's like it's supposed to be like the ultimate free speech platform. I mean, obviously it's not. Everywhere has censorship, but it's pretty damn free speech. Like I've only known of one woman who had any issues on there. Like you can say whatever the fuck you want. So and the GCs and radfems are like in their own little corner of the website. I mean, as much as far as I can tell. Um, do you want to be that mixed up with GCs? That's my main question. Um, it's kind of hard to like just follow the radfems and not the GCs on there. But at least you can say whatever the fuck you want. Um, Jade, I support you in unfriending this incredibly stupid man. You have better things to do with your time. T Mystery says, many lesbians have trouble making friends. Some lesbians avoid friendships with other lesbians because emotions can become complex. Boundaries can be tricky to determine. Okay, I feel like that's another topic for another stream, but I very much agree with that. Uh, Toss stones, I wasn't allowed friends, totally controlled by my partner. Now I prefer to be on my own. Yeah, because my ex and I did the U-Haul thing, I feel like my sense of self was like almost immediately like melded with hers. And being on my own, I'm like, "Oh, I have so much time to, like, do things that I enjoy and, like, relax and, like, n have times in my day where I don't think at all about anybody else's needs or wants or desires," which are, like, things I didn't realize I was doing while I was in the relationship until after, right? I totally feel this, like, wanting to be on your own thing. I'm also, like, a major homebody. Like, I go to meetups and shit, but honestly, like, where did I go the other day? Oh, yeah, I went to a concert, like, at a church, like, classical music concert at a church, and they were like, "We need to check your vaccination, and we need to check, like, your ID, and we need, like, this and that other thing," and I was, like, completely unprepared because I literally never fucking leave my house. So I was, like, unprepared to do any of those things, and I was like, "What?" I had to, like it was, like, a whole thing. But, like, I'm a major homebody. I like being, like, alone by myself and, like, relaxing. I totally feel you, Tallstones. It's a nice thing. Um, Maple says Getter is Twitter for bad kids with nasty mouths. Um, oh, yeah, it's very dead. The engagement is extremely low. I think it's the algorithms. I think their algorithm is dumb. Because like, even really, really popular people with, like, 2,000 followers, like, their average Getter post will get, like, 1 like. So I think it's pretty whack. I don't know. It's not the best thing ever. I wouldn't recommend, like, going on there if you don't want to. Um, I think there's a lot of women calling themselves gender critical who are not really gender critical, and so you have, like, gender critical women, radical feminist women, and then women who are just, like, wanting attention or something, and all 3 are saying, like, similar things, and the women who are watching are like, "Oh, all 3 of these women are in the same group," and I think that's, like, the basis for a lot of the fighting going on right now. I don't know, man. Like, I wanna talk about feminism and lesbianism and stuff, and if that means that people are like, "You're mean and I don't want like, you're not welcoming over the other women," or whatever the fuck, I don't fucking know. But if women have issues with this, it's like, I don't know what to say, man. Like, I wanna talk about my feminist shit. I don't really wanna be in all this fighting and drama and things. Yeah, that's something else too. Clown World is like, I think women are perfectly capable of being petty and stupid by ourselves. Yeah, very much agree. Um, I also think it's like I've been a rad femme for like 7 years. I think 2014, and it's now 2022. Isn't that 8 years? Whatever, a while. And I think when you've been around a while, you see like women fighting with each other, and you're kind of like you get like an instinct for how to behave when women are fighting with each other to like step back, assess like is this affecting other women, like, in a huge negative way? Is this, like, their own drama? Like, what's going on? To, like, step back and be like, "Okay, these women fighting with each other. Alright. This is what happens a lot of the times. Um, this is how it is," and, like, to not take it too seriously. I think a lot of what's happening with the women who are on Getter and YouTube recently is that they've all become GC, like, in the last year or 2. So for them, it's all, like, this big new thing of, like, "Oh my god," like, factions and fighting and, like, who's on whose side, and I'm like, I I don't know. I feel like I've been around long enough that I've kinda, like, developed, like, a skin for it, and it does not so intense for me, and I don't take it so seriously. Um, and a lot of these women, they are very intense about it and take it very seriously, and you can't get so involved with all these, like, interpersonal stuff. Like, you're not gonna survive, um, emotionally, you know? And also, um, we all, I'm sure, know these, like, women or these feminists who they take part in every single drama on every Facebook group and every Twitter thread. They're in every single fucking drama. And the result of this is that they have allied themselves with so many, like, their behavior in allying themselves with the women is like more based on combativeness than anything else. More than like what do I have in common, like who am I compassionate towards? It's more based on combativeness. And the result of this is that there's like a couple of women who are like lone wolves who like they have like almost no positive interactions with anyone because they're so combative, like um and I don't know. I feel like I watch this stuff happening and I'm like, how do I not do that? Cuz it just seems like really, really destructive. And like, when I look back in 20 years, am I gonna be like, I'm proud of what I was doing in 2022? Or, like, all I did was, like, fight with women on the internet in 2022, you know? That's kinda how I try to look at it. I try to not get too, like, sucked into it. Obviously, I varying degrees of success on that front, but I try. Um, Myron says, "I am usually very conflict averse and would keep my mouth shut even when I completely disagree with someone. I've just gotten over that partially now. I'm the opposite. I really, really have to like be aware and stop. I have very bad impulse control. Very, very bad impulse control. So it really depends on the context. Like there's some sites like Getter or Facebook where when I see conflicts going down, I'm like, well, I don't have a horse in this game. Like this is not my conflict to have. And there are other places where or individuals where like when I see shit going down with them, it's like I have to really, really stop myself and be like, you have a lot of things to say, but like, what is it going to accomplish? Is it worth your time? Is it worth your energy? How is this going to affect you, like emotionally? Like I have to like stop myself and like talk myself through it and convince myself not to. Um, but I'm glad because what I've really learned from the internet in my last like 15 years of interneting, like less is more. Like really, really less is more. Which you wouldn't know based on my super long live streams, but yeah. Like, when somebody was coming after, Dragon Kid again and attacking her, I was like, this to me is, like, a very clear situation of, like, you know, this is, like, one of, like, my women, like, in my sphere, and I wanna support her, so I will, like, stand up and say something about this. But I don't want to, like, engage in everything all the time. I try to be, like, very, like, targeted about it and not be into drama much. Because like, I try to me, it's like, is this like an individual situation or is this like endemic or emblematic of like an entire communal issue? And that to me also factors into like, am I going to say something or say nothing? Because if this is like an instance of a behavior which is problematic within the well, even if you could contextualize of it as a community is questionable, but if this is like a constant issue, this behavior, then it's to me is worth calling out. Is this like an individual issue between these two women, which is like very, very complicated and specific? Then it's like I don't know. But I try not to get too sucked in, and I feel like a lot of what's happening on Getter and YouTube right now is just that like these women have gotten like really, really sucked. They've like U-hauled with the drama, is what I'm saying. They've U-hauled with the drama, and I'm like, this is not the way, guys. Um, I very much agree. Grey Witch says, I think a lot of these women aren't used to the firm disagreement. Many were deep in the lib fem quote unquote be nice above anything mentality. Yeah. It's that particular is very, very strange. That there's a lot of women, even YouTubers, and like I'm talking about like, prolific commenters who are on Twitter having drama. I mean not Twitter, Getter having drama. And even YouTubers who are like, I can handle disagreement. But then you look the way they behave when someone disagrees with them, and it's like I think they say that because they want to believe that they're like past this phase that Grey Witch is speaking about, but maybe emotionally and psychologically they're not past this phase. Um, oh yes, Dragon is talking. It's not Dragon. Clarimold is talking about when women use misogynist slurs against each other. Yes, to me too. This is a huge red flag. Maple is saying this is a red flag. Very, very much agree. Um, this is what I've been seeing recently with quite a few of the women who are like, I can handle disagreement, and I'm like, to call yourself a feminist and to say you handle disagreement, but then to like relish and enjoy flinging copious misogynist insults at other women. To me, it's like this obviously is going to breed conflict. Like, why are you behaving this way? Like you should. I'm not like I don't need to know why you're behaving this way. Like you should ask yourself, why are you behaving this way? Like, what do you think you're accomplishing? Um, I think it's like you're just getting like an emotional high off of like the fighting or something or like the misogyny or something. Like it's very unfortunate. Anung says we did spend 20 years working on new methods of communication, consciousness raising, de-escalation, consensus building. That's all been thrown down the rainbow memory hole. Anung, can you recommend a book about this topic or a zine or something? Something about this topic that I can read, please. Um, Myron says, honestly makes me LOL when a woman is like, I'm no longer a feminist, you're all bitches. I'm like, have you not interacted with any women before? Your feminism sucks. If you want to like because you don't like if you don't like some women. Yeah. Um, yeah. Anung says I got called a dick panderer and a drunken Indian. I'm repeating what she's saying here. For repeating basic radical feminist theory from back in the day by women 40 years younger than I. That's something else too. I'm very aware of like the age differential or dynamic or whatever paradigm. I'm not sure. Um, because like on one hand, I definitely for sure am like, older feminists, older lesbians, tell me what was it like? What did you learn? What was your experience? Obviously, right? I'm like, fucking, I want to know. On the other hand, I am very conscious that like I don't talk about most of what I do, like most of my activism stuff. I don't talk about it on YouTube for like obvious fucking reasons because like security and like the ability to get more shit done, obviously. And sometimes I get messages or emails or whatever from women, and they're like, "You don't even know what you're doing. You're like some child, and I know what's right, and like you don't respect the older women and blah blah blah." And I'm like, I don't know, man. Just because you've been around a while doesn't mean you automatically know everything better than me, and like I should be talked down to and treated like shit. And I'm like, I'm not trying to be arrogant, but like I kind of know what I'm doing, and I've contributed quite a bit, and I'm planning on doing a lot more contributing to like feminist stuff in Canada in the next year, um, like in a real world way that I will not talk about on YouTube for obvious fucking reasons. And I don't know, like this is something else I find very strange on the internet is there's a handful of women who are known as activists, right? Who have like built a reputation for themselves and use their real names on right? And then they will talk to the other women like you've done nothing, so your opinion doesn't matter and shut the fuck up. And I'm like, but how do you know she's done nothing? Because she's like an anonymous screen name. For all you know, she's like a career activist who is like, I don't know. I just find the whole thing extremely bizarre, and I don't like all that nonsense. Matt Adams says some people get a literal adrenaline rush from getting into conflicts. Yes, that's what I'm talking about. Clearly, there are a lot of women who are in that state recently on the internet. Um, Maple, this is what I tried to have this. Maple says, I mean, I'll admit when it is something dangerous, I will compulsively call it out. I don't care if it causes drama, but I absolutely will not cause drama for its own sake. Yeah, that's where I try to draw the line. Like most of the time, I'm like, less is more. Don't say anything. Like, do you really have to say something? Don't say anything. But then when I do, I like try to draw this kind of thing exactly like you're saying. Um, Yeah, Maple, she says, "I've seen too much horrible shit go down because people stood around and allowed it to happen." Yeah, I've seen the same thing in feminist spaces, like, straight women being, like, super, super, super lesbophobic, and everybody's just, like, saying nothing. I'm like, "Well, I'm not gonna say nothing." Um, or racism, ugh, the racism I've seen in some feminist spaces is, like, insanely off the charts, and I'm like, "Oh, I'm not gonna say nothing," you know? Um I totally agree. Or like the way that detrans women are like tokenized and used and like treated like with zero fucking respect, also disgusting. Um, and there's a handful of things like that that I view as like endemic to feminist, not endemic, but like a potential an issue which has existed, which has the potentiality of becoming a big issue again, depending on which space I'm in. That I'm like, there's a handful of issues that it's like I will always speak up about this, even if it causes drama or whatever. Yeah, I agree, and Doug says it's also very different arguing online than when we had heated debates in person. I almost feel like if you had a heated debate in person, you would, like, get it out of your system and move on, and what's happening online is, like, what would be, like, one conversation turns into, like, months of, like, reiterating the same shit over and over again. Um, yeah, okay. Oh, Ghost, that's very flattering, thank you. I'm not trying to, like, one up anyone or whatever, I'm just trying to, like, comport myself in a way that I will not be ashamed of, like, when I look back in a month, you know? Okay. Remember how I was like, the stream is gonna be an hour? It's been an hour and 45 minutes, could have been longer. All right. Okay. So, I'm gonna wrap this up. I'm going to organize the rest of the streams for the week. Like, actually schedule them at times that I will actually do them so that you can, like, set the reminder and I will actually do it at that time. If I have to cancel another one, I will push all of them back, unlike last time where you guys are all confused now. I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you very much for tuning in. Obviously, as usual, thank you for the very good discussion. Thank you, Dragon. Yeah. I'm going to I'll let you know at the end of tonight whether we're doing a stream tomorrow or not, but we are definitely doing a stream on Wednesday, no question. Okay. Thank you all for coming. I'll see you either tomorrow or Wednesday. Okay. Thanks for being here, Toss Stones. As always, great having you. Okay. Bye.